Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're doing well and staying safe, especially in the current turbulent times. My name is Sunil. Just to introduce myself, I head the enterprise partnerships team at Scalar, and I'll be your host today. Firstly, thanks for joining the webinar. This is the first in a series of engagements called Fireside Chats that we have initiated. The idea behind these chats is to have candid, freewheeling conversations with leaders in tech to understand how their journeys have been, the challenges they've faced, their successes, and most importantly, their perspectives on how to build a fulfilling career in tech. All right. Coming to today's session, the topic is women in tech. In fact, a recent study by Zino Wintel actually pointed to the data that 26% of the entire tech workforce is filled with women. So the representation of women in the technical workforce is significantly lesser than 31% that you have in the non-technical workforce. And this is a gap that really needs to be fixed. The good news is that companies are cognizant of the fact, they acknowledge the fact, they are making positive steps to sort of address this over a period of time. For example, Microsoft has a program targeting women coming back to work after a break to sort of enable them to have a smoother transition into their careers. And even closer home at Scalar, we have a program called Scalar Include, where we have put aside 1 crore rupees to fund scholarships for talented women techies. Right. So this is the entire context. Long story short, gender representation is a big problem. The good news is that companies are taking positive steps. Individuals, such as our speakers here, are taking positive steps. They are influencing people to identify the problem and take steps to fix the problem. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists today. Both of them, as you guessed right, are successful leaders in tech, and they've had very successful and eventful careers. Our first panelist today is Ms. Shwetha Lakshman Rao, Staff Engineer at VMware and Senior Director at Women Who Code. Shwetha comes with about 15 years of experience as an engineer. She's an active innovator and holds patents, and she also has expertise in happening technologies such as IoT, blockchain, cloud, and machine learning. So that is the career part of it. Outside work, she's also a very active member of the tech community. She's a part of various hackathons, both as a participant and more frequently as a part of the judging panel. She conducts brainstorming sessions for budding engineers. That's a way of paying it forward to the community. And most importantly, she's a strong proponent of women in tech. She's been recognized and awarded by some of the top D&I forums across the world, including the likes led by Google and Amazon. She's a key stakeholder at VM Inclusion, which is a VMware initiative that aims to upskill 15,000 women and help them return to work in tech. Welcome, Shwetha. We're really honored to have you as a panelist today.
Thank you, Sunil. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Our second panelist is Ms. Geetha Kannan, a versatile entrepreneur and a pioneer of the women in IT movement in India. She has over 30 years of experience across both the corporate and the non-profit sectors. She's worked in HR leadership positions in Infosys and ANZ before starting her own company, WEquity. Geetha's work on equity for women started in 2006, where she set the stage for women enabling policies at Infosys. Fun fact, she in fact hosted the first ever Women in Tech conference. The success of this conference, the impact of this conference got the attention of larger bodies such as NASSCOM and CII, who in turn partnered with Geetha to further the cause of gender inclusion to larger audiences in the country. Being a trained software professional herself, Geetha is a strong believer in the power of technology, and this, coupled with her passion for gender inclusion, is a very dangerous combination in this field, right? It makes her one of the most influential leaders in the D&I community in India. Welcome, Geetha. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here. Real honor and privilege. Thanks, Sunil, for that lovely introduction.
So we have two top stalwarts from the tech and gender inclusion space. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of fun. The users are looking forward to the Q&A session as well. To broadly describe the framework of today's call, initially we'll have some conversations between the three of us. We will try to keep it about 30% of the time, and then we open the floor up to the larger audience who can ask specific questions pertaining to their queries in terms of careers and so on. All right. To start off with, I wanted to take some time to understand your backstories, right? Everybody likes a good backstory. Both of you, like I mentioned earlier, are very successful leaders. You have thousands of followers on social media who look at you as role models. A wise man once said, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. We were hoping to understand your origins. At what point of time in your lives did you decide to take this direction in your careers? What were the aha moments that shaped these trajectories?
Okay, are you addressing? Okay, I'll take it, Shwetha, because by the time you can Um, I actually entered the space all by stumbling accident. So just think of this: born and brought up in the hills. So you can see rolling tea plantations. Okay. And I think with so much screen fatigue, all of y'all should, probably close your eyes and just probably listen to what I'm going to say, because you can feel the cool breeze on your face. You are surrounded by tea plantations. Everybody in that little town knows everybody. And then you know what? The first job I get is in Mumbai. And did I say no to it? No, I went. It was a woolen mill. It was the Raymond Woolen Mills. Lovely company. I still feel that a lot of what I learned in my basis and foundation of what I learned is there. But then my apologies if anyone is from Mumbai, because I know the Mumbaites love their city. But for somebody who comes from the hills, oh, the trains coming in at 8:56, leaving at 9:02. Oh God, that was just a little too much for a hill girl like me. So one of the first things that I did when I just finished 1 year at the Raymond Woolen Mills is I just want to come back to South India and probably Bangalore. And so I reached out to my network, and mumble, I fell into the hands of Wipro at that point, and was offered a position of being a product executive for, probably many of y'all wouldn't have heard it, but it's a database product called DBase4. And that was actually, at that point, I didn't even think IT, non-IT, nothing. It was stumble, mumble, fell right there. But I think after that, there was no looking back. Now you can open your eyes and listen to Shwetha.
Right. I was just sort of, lost in those tea plantations and things like that. That is obviously a dream that all of us have, right? Given current lockdowns and the general macro setup, I think all of us yearn for some time away in some serenity and things like that. But thanks for the description, Geetha. Shwetha, you're on mute.
I agree with Geeta. Most of us who landed up in the tech field may not have thought of it. So that's the same case with me. Till the time I completed my plus two, I didn't have any idea to get into the computer science or any of these tech field. But then things change over time. So I completed my graduation in computer applications. I did my masters. That's how things started changing. I got into Satyam through campus placement, and then I moved on to VMware, and I'm sticking on to VMware with lots of things happening. Initial days, many of the women feel the same, like things are going on, let it keep on. That's it, right? But then things started changing around 2012, where one of my manager mentioned that, do you have a network which can help you both technically as well as on the soft skills? And that's the turning point for me. So I started building my network better. I started uh, pre- attending the conferences, submitting papers, and that's how I got connected with Geeta, got inspired more and more over the time, and today I'm here.
Right, right. So one thing that I got from both of you was that you sort of went with the flow, right? You sort of, you were looking forward to what's in store for you and things like that. But any career journey comes with its own set of, you start second guessing yourself. Am I doing the right thing? You see that a lot as well, right? I'm an engineer as well. At some point of time, I thought, is engineering the way forward for me? Do I do an MBA? I went ahead and did an MBA and so on. But I'm sure you had a lot of doubts. You had a lot of second guessing as well. What made you stick to your North Star, which is a career in tech? What was this? What was this anchor in your entire career?
One of the interesting thing what I feel is you can always uh, put yourself into the problem and try to find the solution. Many are cases. Currently, whatever I'm working with is the existing situation of COVID. How can I contribute back? How can I give back? That innovative thinking is much important and happens in tech a lots of times. So it's, if you have the passion, if you have the commitment, and if you want to innovate, I think tech has enormous opportunity to do the same, and that's something that is holding me back.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
Actually, Sunil, you brought up a very stray point which we struggle with a lot when talking to the community, was the fact that all of us have an educational identity. We all are engineers, or we're doctors, or we have that educational identity actually, literally hammered into our heads, especially the Indian middle class and above, that I mean, it's not even that. Even everybody knows that education is probably a gateway to an opportunity. So all of us have got that in our heads inherently. But one thing that I've seen for the last at least 10, 12 years I've been in this space is that people don't then have a career identity. Many of them then, after the engineering or whatever you're doing, you come out and then you look for jobs. And I think that's where we stumble the most, because if you have a career identity and if you split that down into what it means, A, you need a sense of purpose, right? If you know, I mean, it's easy for me to sit back today and tell you what my sense of purpose is. It might be difficult for people in the audience to say it. But if you know that that is what you want to do, all your decisions, whether you want to be in this industry, whether you want this job, whether you want to join Scalar or you don't want to join Scalar, is taken because you know what decisions to take, because it's towards your goal, not towards your goal, right? And then post that, you have to have career persistence to continue. And that's one thing that I've seen starkly in every aspect. It's not that we all know what is right for us or what is wrong. I in fact had a colleague at Infosys who was a doctor, and then he came on to be a web designer for us. I mean, it seems like a bizarre shift, but he did great as a web designer. So it's just, it might hit you in different points of life, but if you really know what you want, you will make those small steps towards it. And that's what I think making one way is making the best use of what you have, and you're seizing those opportunities and progressing towards that goal. So whether I was in a Wipro or whether I moved into an Infosys and spent about 16 years there, is what did you do to then, make sure that you got what you wanted out of that job. And I think that's what made us stay on in this IT industry and make sure that other women in the IT industry, I mean, I think for Shwetha also, because she does a lot of work in that area, is how do we then create that same space for all women in tech? It's a little bit
Understood.
of a long-wounded way of saying what I want to say, but I think I needed that message to go out. Exactly what you picked on about the career persistence and
Right.
identity.
I absolutely agree. One of the words going around these days is the concept of ikigai, right? It's from a Japanese, it has a Japanese background to it. It's basically the intersection of three sets: what you're good at, what pays you well, and what's of greater use to the society. Whatever falls in this intersection of these three sets is typically what gives you some sort of fulfillment, some sort of purpose in whatever it is that you do. I think it's a fantastic point that you've made. Moving a little closer home to the theme of this conversation, and this question's directly for you, Geetha, given your long work in this particular subject. Uh, Straight question: what are the problems that you mostly see women in tech, facing both in the workplace and outside the workplace, which is a significant part of their lives as well, that contribute to this dismal ratio of 26%? What do you think are the biggest challenges, both firsthand and from whatever you have interacted with your followers and so on?
Yeah. So my apologies to you, Sunil, but um, the the there are a couple of factors on one side of the table that unfortunately results in being us where we are. One is the whole aspect of corporate being developed of how whatever for, it's like a democracy for men. And a lot of like the leadership competencies that are explained, even the job descriptions that are given, it's also male focused. It's nothing against male, only men were there at that point of time, so they decided to create what was right for them. So one aspect is that. Then the whole second aspect of the fact is, if we want equality, everybody in that circle needs to strive for equality and equity. Unfortunately, I've seen over the years that I've been preaching to the choir in terms of, I've been only talking to the women and saying, be more ambitious, do this, do that kind of thing. But I just In fact, I've signed up to be part of the Marshall Goldsmith 100 as well as Tasha 10, where we are going to look at how we can change that equation and make everybody think of equality as an equal pie that everybody has to worry about. It can't be only my problem, it has to be everybody's problem. The second aspect of it is that this is fortunate or unfortunate, but women are not the best supporters of other women, right? And in fact, we've got many cases where the community approaches us saying that the worst enemy is to have a female boss, right? They'll put you down, they'll do everything, and they'll not support you. So we have one side that we have the everything defined from a male eye point of view, and the women who are there as role models are not helping everybody to do it. That's one aspect. Then India, unfortunately, has this huge cultural, societal issue where, the thinking is very unconscious. It's not that it's very deliberate, but what you've learned, you can't leave outside your door and walk into the office. I'll give you a small example of this. For example, if you see a lady in your team who's just had a child, you don't give them the opportunity, probably, like, say, to fly to Paris for the next, new job. Why? Because you are a good boss. You're thinking, what, that poor thing, how can she leave her little child and go? You're a great boss. But actually, no one bothers to ask that girl, does she want to go to Paris? Will she bother about the arrangements of who will take care of that child or not? So that is that equality, that unconscious bias that creeps in because you want to be the protector, right? That is another harm that's happened on one side. The whole cultural, social context of it's not a matriarchal society, it's a patriarchal society. So a lot of it stems from that fact. And so these two things, put together, is who gets crushed in between is the poor women. Right, so that's what is exactly happening, and we do a lot of work then with them to, it's not enough if we do work with the women. We have to work with the organizations. We have to then become influencers out for society to say this is the way that things have to change.
Got it. So these inherent biases that unconsciously come into people's behavior and this whole protector syndrome that you're referring to, what kind of approach from your experience helped in breaking down these blocks bit by bit? Any success stories where you helped change the narrative? Any success stories that people can replicate in their own ecosystems?
So one of the things that we've seen successful is, especially in organizations, okay, because if you have a lot of organizational support, the unconscious bias can can chip away. So the thing is, working with the you shouldn't go ahead and say, I want to change the diversity numbers in my organization. Tick. I attended a conference. Tick. It cannot be a tick-based system. The minute you've approached it that way, I mean, you've lost the battle, leave alone the war. So we go to organizations. In fact, we're working with one of them where sorry. Where we're trying to teach them to look at everything from a holistic perspective. And this is based on a little bit of a philosophy book that was written that is called Braiding Sweet Grass. And braiding sweet grass in terms of braiding sweet grass in terms of, it says that there was an engineer who came to help these tribal people as to what they should, how they should collect their produce from the lake. And he said he could prove that the amount that they got, which now was only about 50%, could improve all the way to 85%. So he did all this, and of course, as a lot of tribal people are very respectful, they listened to his whole solution, and he gave them a solution where they could cut it down to 50%, from 50% to 85%. So there'll be no loss of grain. But then the head of the tribal unit said, why we allow that to fall? Because we're feeding the ecosystem. It's not that we want all that 100% for ourselves. 50% is enough for us to live. The rest goes out to feed that ecosystem or whatever is there in that lake. And I think that's where we are trying to make organizations look at it from that perspective, saying it's not enough if you get all the 100% for yourself. You have to feed the ecosystem, right? And we're working on, so the top management speak has to be different. The way you post on social media has to be different. Your job descriptions can't say, this work will make you travel a lot and have intense pressure. You can't have words like that. It has to be gender neutral speak. So it's such a holistic, it's like looking at it like from all angles of that circle. And that's where we've seen success. Very difficult, but
Got it. I think it takes a. You're right. It takes a very, very conscious effort, and I think it all boils down to the little things that they do, right? Rather than make it a checklist driven activity, like you mentioned some time ago. I think it has to be in everything that people do. Thanks, Geetha. Uh, One of the other things that we noticed at Scalar, right, having been in business, having operationally been around for about 2 years and conducting a lot of cohorts, we noticed that people learn technical skills in college to whatever extent, at least in terms of theory. But one thing that was missing in the entire technical space was access to mentors, right? So, Shwetha, you act as a mentor for a lot of budding engineers, right? That is something that you're well known for giving your thoughts on various queries that they come up to you with and so on. Uh, what role did mentorship play for you in your own career journey?
Mentorship has played a major role in my career journey. I have so many mentors around me. The way I have structured my mentors around me is that having mentor at every level. For instance, I have someone close to me with whom I can talk anything and everything, try to understand what is required to get into the next level, what is the current situation, all these things. Also, have mentors at higher level, which means have someone at VP or CEO level, and you look them as the role model and get to talk to them as well, right? And it helps to know that, okay, what is the kind of effort that is required, what takes you till there, right? Those kind of conversations are also important. Along with these things, it also helps in understanding what are the current opportunities. See, usually what happens is not every project will give you the opportunity which will get you the visibility or the growth path, right? But when you have these kind of mentors along with you, it helps in understanding what can I do beyond what is my regular delivery. This is something that I always encourage people. That's the reason I host lots of brainstorming sessions. I encourage people to go and attend hackathons. The best thing that you people are doing with CodeX-For-Her, right? Because that will enable them to create opportunities. And what I also try to do is whenever the hackathons are happening, we have like 3-member group. Along with that, I'll always tag new set of women in that group, which means you are creating the opportunity for next set of people. Once we start doing these things, right, then it enables the next set of people and it become more of a ripple effect. So along with these lines, for the women who code core volunteer team, I have about 100 plus women who stand with me every time. So in that way, it helps everyone to grow together.
Got it. So just an extension to what you just said, right? In terms of communities where people actively join these communities to get access to mentorship ideas, cognitive diversity, and so on, right? How can an organization inculcate such a spirit of learning, right? One way of learning is obviously through video classes and various study materials that you may or may not have as a part of your repository. But how can a company inculcate this a feeling where a senior person volunteers and talks to somebody slightly lower in the entire pyramid, in the entire hierarchy? How does a junior employee in the company feel free enough to go and approach somebody senior, maybe a unit head or vertical head or somebody, to ask for advice? How can a company actually encourage this sort of bilateral dialogue? Have you seen any success stories?
Yes, I'm the example for that as well. So, in our organization, we have official as well as non-official, unofficially mentorship programs as well. So, today it's like very easy because I have been talking to leaders over the span of years, trying to explore, evaluate, innovate on different things. I go and do that kind of homework before I reach out to the leaders. So now, whenever I go and talk to the leaders, they always guide me on how to be taken care. what are the decisions to be made, what would be the possible risk. And I think most of the organizations are growing mature on these lines. They are having some of these kind of programs officially as well. The other thing also is, officially we have a program where I have one of our VP as my mentor. So I get to learn lots of things, what it takes, what are the kind of things, the tasks that the VPs will have, what are the kind of challenges that they have to. So it helps me visualize, okay, someday when I reach there, these are the things, these are the opportunities, this is how I have to take care of the next set of people. Those kind of things are already happening in couple of organizations, but then there is a need for other organizations to learn from what is happening, what are the good things anybody is doing on these space, and help their employees.
So actually, that was a very brilliant question, Sunil, because I think what we struggle with is, if our organization doesn't provide it, what do we do, right? Because it's not that all of us, I mean, can get, this bilateral, I mean, I remember, I think it was Jack Welch long time ago when the internet was coming up. He said that he used to be mentored by somebody who was younger because she knew all about the net and things like that. So it's like, it's such a, but one of the things that I would like to place out there is, one of my favorite learnings that from my thing is, ask. And now you have LinkedIn, or you have Facebook, anything. I mean, just go there, ask. I mean, tweet them also, right? And just ask. Worst case, what will happen? You'll be in a no better position. That's all, right? Ask whoever you want. I mean, if you want like Sunil to mentor you, just put it out to Sunil and say, can you please mentor me? It'll probably, I need 1 hour of your time once a month. That's it. And these are the things that I want you to show me how to make a good pitch and a sale. That's it. Just tell them that. They'll know what you're asking, what you want from them. And if they can provide it, they will say yes. Otherwise, they'll ignore that message. You'll never know about it. You move on to the next person. But I think there's no harm in just asking.
Completely agree with you, Geeta. That is a very important thing. Many a times we don't ask. We assume, we have the fear of failure, which will hold us back from asking for anything. So as Geeta mentioned, just go and ask. There are wonderful leaders in the industry, and they always try to support people. I don't know how many hundreds of requests Geeta would be getting even in a month, but she has never said no to many requests that comes, because that's how I am here today. So in that way, please ask. That is very important. People are there to help you out.
Right, right. Like someone once said, right? If you don't ask, the answer is anyway no. Right. Uh, yes. So one other thing, see, one of the things that most people refer to both of you about is the fact that both of you have a very strong willingness to pay it forward in the community, right? Even when I went through Geeta's introduction some time ago, I mentioned the fact that she had spearheaded the initial days of women inclusive policies and enforces the entire women in tech conference that was held. And it's been a long time from the Infosys days to today. But fast forwarding it to today, Geetha, what is the biggest problem that you're currently working on, especially considering the impact of COVID? This is more of a today. What keeps you up to today?
Well, I mean, a lot of people ask this whole context of how do we work from home? And it seems like a very simple question. I mean, how do you work from home? Okay, make sure you have Wi-Fi connection, make sure you have a laptop, and if infrastructurally is what we usually think of it. But I think what the struggle, and this I'm talking only from the gender and the female perspective, is the fact that my office and my home have just now merged, right? So today there seems to be no distinction. And I'm talking about the larger part of the IT industry, where the lack of empathy from most of the managers have also resulted in the fact that you don't know when you're going to stop. It's like you don't know when you're stopping coding to go to cooking, right? Yeah, because it's just C. I'm saying the same thing, right? So it's like, or when do you stop cooking to do the coding? I remember in the earlier on in the when the pandemic, we had the lockdown. There was like, she's having this a conversation with her boss, and they said, how many whistles will that go? She was asking her, whoever was standing next to her from a family member perspective. And the boss said, it was 3 whistles. Now I think you can go switch it off. So it was like that exactly is what was happening. But initially it was all, oh, it's so cute to see your 2-year-old come and smile in the camera. But when the work started getting affected and I couldn't deliver, it was a different tune that the manager started talking. And I think that is the biggest challenge that we are facing today from a pandemic perspective. It's not the work from home, but my deliverables. How do I, and of course, we've been stripped of all infrastructure from a home perspective, right? I'm sure vacuum cleaners and dishwashers are at the maximum supply, being demand at this moment. But because we're stripped from that one side, and we have online classes, children under our feet, very supportive partners in some cases, but very non-supportive partners in other cases, where you still expect your tea to come in front of you, and at the end of your day your screen time shifts from your laptop to your TV, right? So that's the struggle, and I think that's what our women are reaching out maximum for. Is I think something that we did in an informal conversation is that mental and emotional support just to get through day by day. And now with oxygen scarcity, with lack of medicine, hospital beds, a lot of it falls on the women to do all those kind of, what I would always say that we are so good at is the program management of it all, right? You look at everybody, okay, can we call this person, can we do that? So we're using our network for those kind of things. And I think that's the challenge that we find that this pandemic has brought, and it's just squeezing us from both sides.
Understood. I think more than like you rightly mentioned, more than work-related pressures, ultimately in the entire Maslow's hierarchy, right? People are now concerned about the most fundamental layer, which is survival. We don't know what is going to happen, right? If at all, God forbid, I fall ill, I don't know if I'm going to get a hospital bed. I don't know if I'm going to get oxygen, if at all I were to need it. What would you suggest when there are such primal fears? One, there is an unconscious bias in the office. 2, there is a lot of you shift from your laptop screen to your TV. You got to make food at home. You got your family to take care of, kids to take care of, and things like that. And 3, there is also a primal fear of survival, right? What would be your advice? How do people compartmentalize? How do women? What is your advice for women to compartmentalize and take it one day at a time, like you mentioned some time ago?
I remember on I had a convent education, so we had this big poster in our principal's office. And now, why was I in the principal's office so often? You shouldn't ask those questions, right? These are all hidden stories. But the thing is, it said, one step at a time, sweet Jesus. And I think if we can just, that's it. It's just one step at a time. If I can survive the next 30 minutes and, not having my Wi-Fi crashing when I'm with Scalar, and I can impart what I wanted to say. I've written my notes. I want to say something. I want to ensure that I said it. Those seems to be like small pleasures if it was like 3 years ago, but today that's what drives me, right? So if we can seek small pleasures in what we have, make goals that are only very, very minimalistically ahead. And of course, I can beat this down to death, but practice a little bit of me time and mindfulness. Otherwise, a cousin of mine said, no, either I'll go stark raving mad or I'll die of COVID. I don't know which one I'm going to choose. Right. So please ensure that you don't, be careful, don't, be exposed to COVID, but please spend time to be mindful. There's a lot of things out there. We're a rich tradition of yoga, meditation, and mantras. Please practice it and use whatever you can, and find that support group where you can talk to people, make sure that, you are heard, because you can't, you have to make sure that wellness component for you, because without a wall, there's no point in drawing such a beautiful picture, no, if there's no wall to hang it on, and that wall is you. And we're so careful about the infrastructure around us. We take care of our laptops, we make sure there's warranty for it, we guarantee for it, whatever, right? And we change our phones every time there's a new phone thing. Why aren't we doing anything like that for this body that's holding me for the last whatever number of years, right? And it's so sad that you're ready to abuse the one thing that is only yours, right? But you're ready, and you just think mindlessly and going and buying a new phone. So I'm just saying, make sure that this person becomes a priority in life. You can't be the last.
Absolutely. I think that's a very, very fair point. Just one disclaimer here to the larger audience, right? Please put across whatever questions that you have in mind, whatever comes to your mind as a part of ongoing conversation that we have here. We will be happy to address them shortly. Please start typing questions whenever, as and when they come to mind. Right. Carrying on with what Geetha just said, Shwetha, what do you think has worked out for you in the current setup? Right, what do you think has worked well for you? How do you balance your personal life, professional life? How do you find something to look forward to?
Some of the key things that I follow is mainly the time management. I'll ensure that I split up the task. I know the priorities. That is very important. And when you are in a position where you can help your people who are not able to prioritize, take that charge, help them out. So I do this for my team as well. I'll set them, okay, this is priority for today, tomorrow, even if it is requiring for every day, I'll prioritize or I'll give them on the weekly task. So they know what is to be taken at priority. And in that way, it's like hardly any time I remember that any of our ETAs has slipped. Second thing that I do is, as I'm passionate about doing all these things, the regular deliverable, contributing to the Women Who Code community and beyond. So, what I also have started practicing is at least just relax, have that some me time so that your mind need that rest. The only thing that I think now is I should be healthy to help others. So, in that way, have good food. So some of these things I'm practicing over the time, which keeps me motivated, inspired to do more. Even if I have less sleep, that is still fine because from last 1 week, hardly I could have got about 5 6 hours of sleep, and today I think I got up at 4:30 because I had to address a couple of things. But that's still fine because I'm able to manage. But whenever your body is asking for rest, please do give it. Otherwise, you will not be able to bounce back.
Understood. Uh, so speaking of prioritizing the things that you want to work at any point of time, right? How do you find the right problem to solve, right? Especially in the tech builder space, there are a lot of things that you can work on, right? There are a lot of features that need to be built. There are a lot of rollouts that need to be done. How do you prioritize? How do you optimize for the best output for every unit input? How do you go about doing that?
So some of the key things that anybody have to remember, especially in the space of innovation, is dream big, start small. You can't build a rocket in one day. So you have to understand what is the problem. Just take a step back, look at the problem holistically. It can be on your feature that you are already working. For instance, you're a web developer. You have a workflow which is taking 5 steps to reach that particular point. Can you cut down to 4? That itself is an innovation because you're enhancing the user experience, right? So start thinking on those lines. That will surely help. Second thing, participate in hackathon. This is one of the best thing that I have seen, especially even in the volunteers group as well. What happens is when you come together, when you start networking with people outside of your regular team members, you start learning more and you will take back the learning better, right? You will know what is there. The main thing, key thing that I usually do is whenever I have to innovate, understand the problem statement. What is there currently as a solution? What is available in the market? And what is the key differentiator that you are bringing in? This, once you start practicing, it will help you to grow towards your ambition towards patent as well. So this is something that I always try out. And one habit that I have is before talking on any of these things, I ensure I have at least one of it. That builds me the confidence to talk about it. So practicing some of these things would surely help people.
Right, one step at a time.
Right.
Understood. Understood. One of the questions, right, that's come up from a couple of people is how do freshers essentially improve their employability, given that supply is much lesser than demand, especially in current context, right? How can freshers make themselves more employable?
The simple things. Yeah,
Actually,
please go ahead.
Shweta
Please go ahead,
made
Geetha.
that. No, I just was saying that Shweta made that point from a technical perspective where you have to make sure that you are different from someone else. So I think that's the first thing that you should do is thousands of graduates. Why you? What is the difference you bring to the table? And I tell people that you can't start now. The minute you enter engineering, you should have said there is some changes that you need in your, it's a very shady way of saying it, but it's like some resume enhancing activities you have to do in college, right? That you can put it in your resume and say, this is why I'm different. Second thing I'd like to also tell people is, it's everything is so AI driven. Please make sure your keywords and everything in your resume is up to date. And third thing is, nobody has time. So don't write a resume that is 4 pages long. Even I don't have a resume that's 4 pages long, and I'm 3 decades in the industry. These are just my 3 points. Shwetha, you can like add to that.
I completely agree with you, Geeta. When thousands of them are there, what is the key difference that you are bringing to the organization? How would you be different? So, what I would suggest, even the students out there is, or even the freshers, okay, everyone is trying to search for a job. How are you doing that different? How are you bringing that difference? Simple thing: participate in a hackathon, start submitting paper for different conferences, understand what is the need of the hour and start learning. You can't just say that, okay, I'm just a fresher, nobody is going to expect anything. That is still fine, but then are you strong in your fundamentals? If I'm taking an interview, I don't expect too much from the students, but are you good in the fundamentals? So that is very important. Language, it's secondary, but when the fundamentals are strong, you can learn any of the language. It's just a matter of learning the coding, the structure of the program. That's it.
Right. Uh, a lot has been said about this as well. How important do you think networking, how important a role do you think networking plays in the entire thing? I guess from a fresher's perspective, it does not add a lot of value, but for slightly more experienced roles, how important do you think networking is for the entire job hunt experience?
Geeta, like to hear
I,
from you first.
I, uh, yeah, this is like, I mean, I take a full session on how to network, but I'd also like to say that even freshers can network, right? Because you have a rich source of alumni, right? And that alumni out there in terms of, and things that in college also, like I know ACM is very strong in college things. So if you were part of some of those associations, you could reach out to ACM peers on that side. So there is that network there also, even from a fresher perspective. But in today's world, I mean, Shwetha will tell you the exact ways to get to that networking aspect. But I'm just saying that when this is something that I learned from my old boss Nandan, is when in those days it was just giving you a visiting card. But when Nandan Nilekani used to give his visiting card, he used to say, I don't expect anything in return for that. It's just that I want that person to know who I am. But when he gets something from that other person and gets that visiting card, on the back of it, okay, this is old fashioned technology, but this is where I learned it from, is you flip it on the back and say, where are the things that this person from likely can contribute in my life? Right? It can be, get me access to talk to some bank for a loan. It could be like, get me tickets for IPL. You can write anything at the back of it, right? So it's just that where can you, so in your mind, then what this network is about. So when you give, you please do not expect to receive anything in return. And when you do get somebody in your network, just put them in there, because later on you'll forget. Now, like you said, no, we have thousands of people on our LinkedIn connections. I know like hundreds of thousands of people. I don't even know names anymore, right? I've reached that state and I blame it on my age, but it's not my age. It's just, it's so overfull, right? So so when do I go reach out then? Like I had a conversation with Shwetha just 2 days ago, asking her for something, right? It was because Shwetha in my head could contribute in this direction for me. So that's what I would urge, but I'd like to, open it to Shwetha to say what are the exact pointers and how to get this network running.
So some of the key things which helps in networking, for instance, um, registering to some of the communities like Women Who Code, WEquity, Women Tech Makers, lot of them are there. There are different kinds of sessions that are happening, as well as some of the pointers being shared by leaders. I follow Geeta even today on LinkedIn. Like, I like some of the articles, I put the comment because I'm getting inspired by that, right? And even on LinkedIn, when someone says that, hey, I don't have a job anymore, so can you kindly like it or comment it, they put it. Why? Because it will make better chances of getting the opportunity, right? That is one thing. The second thing, as I mentioned, start putting your LinkedIn profile as much possible in a better way. Try to highlight the key things, not just as a BE from any of the well known colleges, but what is the key differentiator. Start small. That is what I always keep trying to say. Submit papers in different conferences, or put in your LinkedIn that you have attended these sessions and what was the key takeaway. That itself is a big thing, right? Because that shows the passion that you have to learn more, and that is the great learning that you're taking back to the organization. For freshers, I think that is an amazing thing. I would be very happy if someone says that, hey, I attended these many sessions and these are the key takeaways, right? That is something anybody would look for.
Got it. Got it. I think that's also something that needs to be stressed on, right? A lot of people on LinkedIn just press the share button. They don't add their own inputs to it, right? They just copy paste the entire thing, user credit there. But some of the more engaging posts on LinkedIn that you see are people who share their own interpretation of whatever happened, right? They share their own thoughts.
True.
They add a little more to the content that is more than just copy paste. I think
Correct.
that's a very good point to make. I have one more question from Anupam Dwivedi, right? It's primarily about how we talk about bringing about diversity in tech roles and so on, right? How do women break into management and strategic roles? What is the path to take a person there? Of course,
I think
it's
we
a journey. There are multiple steps in it, but how do we go about it?
exactly. So, but I
Yeah.
think um, this is I try to do a lot of visualization in my head whenever I talk. So it is like, you have to increase the size of the pyramid as well as broaden each step, kind of thing. So it's like you have to hire more women so that you get the benefit of women all the way. And you should start from the bottom. So you're like, in a way, plugging the leaking pipeline as well as probably adding new and more people, so your pyramid keeps increasing. So but that alone is not enough, because and that's why I think when I was talking about diversity in 2006, it was, the only word was diversity. And then slowly, I remember going to Cisco in the US, and they said, you have to add inclusion in it. So, okay, let's add inclusion in it. And then the next one was, we should add, equality in it. And then I came in with my own theories of there should be equity and not only equality. So it's it's DIEE kind of thing. So that, I think, is the journey. It's not enough if you have diversity. You have to ensure that there is equity. Equity means what? You should have different customizable opportunities for everybody so they can achieve their goals. And then that will result in equality. And of course, that means you should have an inclusive culture. So that's the journey. And is it an easy journey? Of course not. It's worse than climbing Mount Everest. I haven't climbed, but I'm just...
And
Got it.
just to add on to what Geetha was mentioning, just to have the numbers, the tick mark, don't hire the candidates. There are lots of women who are equally very good in the technical skills, the managerial as well as static. When you hire for the reason, it brings in that value in the organization, the culture of being inclusive. Otherwise, it will be just a tick box, as Geetha was mentioning, and it will go nowhere.
Got it.
Actually, I have an interesting, it's just an anecdote. Sometime in the mid 2000s, a very large multinational largely based out of Bangalore, what they did is they said, what, in India always hires on these percentages. You should have 70% cutoff, 80% cutoff, whatever. So that cutoff was lowered by 2 percentage points for the women. And so they hired some 100 women on that time because of the 2%. But those women were extremely bright, but none of them stayed more than a year, because you know what? Every manager or every colleague used to say, oh, you belong to that batch where, it was dropped. Because the assumption is you're in that dropped thing. The 2% less is you.
Correct.
Not that you were already there at that cutoff. So, we should be very careful when we're practicing that, just the ticking aspect of diversity hiring.
Right. Right. We are 10 minutes before closure of this discussion. So I saved the best question to the end, right? If both of you could go back in time, what advice would you give your younger selves?
Google it. I didn't have Google when I was growing up.
Mm.
So very often the networking and understanding the industry, what's happening latest, everything is out there today. And I think it would be a shame on our parts if we didn't do enough research and planning for our own careers, right? Because it's all out there. Earlier, you had, I mean, I'm talking a long time ago. I don't even think both of you all even know about it, nor people on the call. But it's when we take encyclopedias and you have to take A, B, C and take it out and then read it up. And our luck, it may have, may not have. But today you have everything at your fingertips. Plus, you can reach out. I reached out, I think, to a lady who was doing. Okay, she's just written a book, and I reached out to her saying I'd really like to see what it is, and she sent me her entire book as a PDF and say, since you were so keen on what I was talking, here it is for you to read. Okay, so it's just that everybody's out there to help and to be part of that thing. So I think, be the little that you can do besides your mindfulness and spending me time is research what you want in life, because you can research, you can plan, and then move forward with that. And if someone could have been my Google or been my, that at that point in time, because it was so limited by people's experiences. Today it is not. And I think that's something I would have liked, and I would like, to have someone to have at least pointed out which way to show my path and what are the alternatives I have before me.
Got it. Makes sense. Shwetha, what about you? What advice would you give your younger self if you were to go back in time?
Ask for help. Very important. I was not doing in my early days in my career. So I have learned it over time. Whenever possible, ask for help. It's okay to be imperfection. That's fine. You need not have to be always 100% there to claim for anything. So these are the two things that I would like to ask myself.
Got it. Another question pertaining to something that you mentioned some time ago, hackathons, right? How can one use hackathons effectively? This is something that one of the viewers wants to know. Everybody wants to do hackathons, right? There's usually prize money attached to it. There's visibility that comes along with on social media and things like that. But how do you optimize on hackathons? How do you ensure that you learn at the same time you build this sort of networks that you're looking for? You build the sort of street cred that you're looking for, right? How do you do that?
One of the best example would be like when you are working for any of the social cause, right? The impact that you are bringing into the community is huge. And along with that, you will start building your analytical skills of understanding the problem better, which would obviously take you a long way. Mentioning about these things in your resume will make your resume much better. And as you start networking during the hackathons, you are building that kind of networking. And whenever you are getting into a hackathon, you are trying to understand the problem statement and come up with new solutions. You end up using new tools, learn new programming skills, new technologies. So in that way, you are always there to get onto top of the set of people who am like in the bunch of same set of people. You always outstand there.
Got it. Got it. Any closing thoughts from both of you? I think I've covered all the questions that our viewers brought up. The call was very informative. Just to summarize, one of the things that was mentioned was that gender inclusion has to be a very conscious effort. It shouldn't be just putting a tick on a checkbox and things like that. It has to be accompanied by even the little things that follow it, right? And secondly, both of you stressed enough and more on the fact that it is important to prioritize what you want to do, create some time for yourself, take care of your health, focus on your longer term priorities, and so on. And we did have a good response in terms of the specific questions that the audience had come up with. Any closing thoughts? Any advice that you want to give the n number of viewers that we currently have?
Yeah, I always, as women, we all want to be super women. We are one of the Avengers all the time, right? We are people who can do everything and anything. And one aspect which Shwetha touched on was ask for help. But another thing that I would ask and urge people, which has helped me a lot, is you control your controllables. We sit and worry about all those uncontrollable factors that that are way beyond our control. We lose sleep over it, we get stressed out, our blood pressure shoots up. But just control your controllables, because what is not in your control you can't do much about, but you can control what's in your control. And for an example is, like, for example, just like if I'm having and I'm going to use the Wi-Fi, I tell everybody in my family, listen, this is an important session for me. I don't want anyone to do some YouTube streaming or Netflix or anything at this time. Please, just between 3 and 4, leave it for me so that I can spend time on Scalar. That's within my control. But if the Wi-Fi dips and my Wi-Fi provider decides to tell me to go, even then I have a backup, because I probably use my what is that again? My hotspot. Okay. But I'm just saying, so those are all my controllables. I can't worry about things that are not in my control. So I try as much as you can, get up in the morning and control those controllables. Life will be much, much, much easier. And thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely. It is an honor. Shwetha, any closing thoughts from your side as well before we wrap this?
If any Monday you don't feel like working, then there is something missing in your regular work. Take a pause, check, are you in the right direction? The second thought is, see how you can help the next set of people. Like we have VM Inclusion Tara, where you can help people to get back to work by upskilling. We have Women Who Code community, where people can come and learn. Try to spread any of these kind of things. Follow WEquity, right? There are amazing stuffs available. It's just that you have to take those steps to learn, as well as not just you learn and be there, rather create that awareness to the next set of people, so that you have next set of people to travel a long way with you.
Got it. Essentially, to pay it forward to the entire community. Got it. Thanks a lot, Geetha. Thanks, Shwetha, for coming on the meeting today. I think I thoroughly thanks for your candor. Thanks for being absolutely honest in all your answers. I thoroughly enjoyed today's call. I enjoyed asking the questions, and I absolutely learned a lot from the responses provided. Even the viewers seem to have enjoyed this call. And great. If at all, at any point of time, we can work together on some sort of initiatives that you are very passionate about, please feel free to let us know. We'll be very, very absolutely elated to partner with you in the future.
Sure. And if any of them want to join the WEquity circle, where we're giving people that you can put in your resume, and we're trying to find jobs for people, feel free to do so. You have to follow WEquity for that, but
absolutely, you heard that, guys. Keep that in mind.
It's a WEquity circle, so just please go look up at LinkedIn, because this is a free service for organizations as well as for candidates. So there's nothing anybody has to give. It's just that we want to give it back, as Shwetha says. We're just paying it forward as much as we can. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Geetha.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Shwetha. Thanks everyone for joining the call. Hope you guys had fun. We will come back to you very soon with the second episode of Fireside Chat. We'll keep you posted on the LinkedIn page. Thanks again. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Sunil.
Thank you.
You were really great. Thank you so much.
I'm so humbled. Thank you so much.